Hey guys, thank you very much for coming by the channel and checking out the next interview. I just wanted to put a quick disclaimer in here before this starts that there were some audio issues on Haxorus's end, which unfortunately we aren't able to do much about. To retake the entire interview would make it unnatural, and I don't want you guys to get that impression that it's scripted or anything like that. So I kind of wanted to get that in there and just let you guys know that Haxorus was doing this from his parents' place. He was kind of the only reason I was able to get hold of him, and I really appreciate him giving the time to speak with us, even if it was on a pair of Bluetooth headphones. We had a great chat. It was a really good time, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me. Can you kind of introduce yourself and tell me a little bit more about your role on the team and what it is that you do for Dead Matter?
Well, I'm pretty much the lead animator. I do a lot of the rigging, a lot of the weapon setup, implementation, and engine, that kind of thing. I do mostly first-person animation, though we have a second guy handling a lot of our third-person stuff. I have one other guy under me, Troy, that he handles some miscellaneous things, cleans up a few things, handles a few weapons that I can't get to, that kind of stuff. But a lot of it's me. Me and Johnny mostly. So
awesome. So we're mostly looking at stuff like first-person animations for the interactions we'll be having in the game. Yeah.
Yep. Weapons, interactions. If we do doors, I'm not sure if we're doing to the extent that we're doing doors. It just depends on how cooperative the engine feels like being. Consumables, any of that kind of stuff.
Sure. Okay. So, how did you join the project, and how long have you been working with the team now?
It's kind of a interesting story. I was going to a community college, a local college here, trying to get a certification in 3D animation. Just so I could have something on my resume, something formal, like some formal education, that kind of thing. And I saw the Kickstarter trailer for Dead Matter. I think they just put it out. I think this is like July. I want to say late June, early July.
Right.
I saw the trailer and I was like, wow, I've got to see if I can to be frank, I saw that the animation quality wasn't where it needed to be. Right.
Yeah.
You can go back and look, and you can probably see the kind of jump in quality. But I just inquired just to see if they had an opening, if they were looking for somebody, and I got in contact with I believe it was Shirk. It was so long ago. It was like about a year ago, more than a year ago. And he said that they had a position open to have an animator on staff. So that's kind of how it happened.
Awesome. So I get this a lot when in the other interviews that I've taken. It really seems like everybody kind of spotted the game and just took like a genuine interest, which is really nice to hear, because like it's more than just like you're looking for a job, right? It's like you've spotted the project and you think it's cool, and you want to get involved. And I think that's like such an important thing, is like that passion that drives you to keep working at it. And I imagine that has quite a big impact on kind of the work you're doing day to day for the team.
I mean, yeah. If I've learned anything about game dev in general, it's that you have to have a passion for what you're doing. Like, you have to genuinely believe in the project. Yeah. Otherwise, like, especially those days where you may not want to sit down, you may not want to finish some work, you may not want to do all the tedious stuff to get to the fun stuff. It makes those days easier.
We all have it in everything we do, I'm sure. I mean, there are days where I go to work sometimes and I kind of sit there and I'm just like on my third coffee and I'm just like, I don't want to do this right now. I just want to go home and stream. But it's necessary, right? And at the end of the day, there are things that I enjoy at my workplace, and I'm sure it's exactly the same for you. So having a passion for the project is absolutely, I can understand that. So outside of Dead Matter, and I already know a little bit about this, thanks to the likes of Reggie and Hank from the team. Nice. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've done before joining this project and what else you've kind of been doing outside of Dead Matter?
In terms of experience I had before I joined the team, I was I've been in the modding community for a long time.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of us got to start that way.
Yeah.
Um, I mostly worked with Fallout 4. I started in Fallout in Vegas. The, geez, the Blender days, that was rough. It was rough times working with that engine. If you played that game, um, but the upgrade to Fallout 4, I kind of made the transition 2 3 years ago, and that got me into using industry standard tools and learning a lot of workflow stuff, and you know it's kind of a big upgrade. So I
Hmm.
was working on that for I want to say 2 or 3 years in that community. I don't my I don't know what to say. My cachet may have diminished in the past few years, just
Yeah.
because I haven't before, when I was going to school, or I had a lot of free time to do modding. But
Absolutely.
as I've picked up like actual work and that kind of thing, it's a lot harder to find time
Sure. Sure.
to do that kind of thing, because it's a big time investment, and you
Hmm.
don't really see monetary compensation or anything for it. It's just kind of like something you just do for fun.
Hmm.
So that was my main thing before I got into actual game dev. I was doing a lot of animation stuff for that, and then around the same time I joined Dead Matter. I actually joined as a contractor. I started working full time at a startup studio here in Texas. It's called Vec4 Digital.
Okay.
They were working on a game called Hide or Die
Yep.
that actually just released, I believe, beginning of this month. So
Yep. So that is
it taught me
where,
a lot, but
yeah. So that is where I mentioned that myself, like I kind of already had knowledge of that, and it came up in
Mhm.
quite an interesting way because I've been speaking a lot with Hank and Reggie from the team. If you guys don't know who I'm talking about there, Havoc, Hank, and Regicidal Nut, both really great guys, really good go-tos for information, and generally just really down-to-earth people. And we'd actually been playing Hide or Die. So I was interested in it. It looked really cool. I wanted to give it a try. So we played a little bit of the game, and we actually played it while I was on stream. And that's when they told me, they were like, "Oh, yeah, like a bunch of the animations and stuff in this is done by Haxorus." And I was like, "Wow, these are actually really good." Because there was like one thing that, and I will openly say that I think that game could do with quite a few improvements. But I enjoyed it. It was good fun. I think the improvements need to come from the progression side and like the keeping you playing side of things.
Yeah.
But the
They
animations,
definitely get that.
yeah, but the animations themselves were really, really solid. And I think that goes for like first person, third person. It felt good. Like looking at it, it looked good. It felt good. And I think it was like, for me, that was like really positive signs. So if you guys want to see kind of some of Haxorus's work, Hide or Die is where you need to look. It's the most, I would imagine that's the most recent stuff you've been working on, right?
Indeed, it's probably what I've been putting my blood, sweat, and tears in for the last 10 to 11 months. Yeah.
So there you go. So if you want an idea of what Haxorus's animations look like, then there you have it. But it's really interesting to learn, and I'm sure as time goes on, hopefully, for the Hide or Die, more people will kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Grow attracted to that game, and we'll see a little
I
bit
sure
more.
hope so. Yeah, we I mean, I had quite a hand in that project. It was a pretty small team. Yeah, I mean, it was not nearly the size of the team we have for this game, but
Mm-hmm.
we all put a lot of work into it. So
Yeah,
hopefully it takes off at some point after we put some more work into it. But
sure,
I
absolutely.
guess that's neither here nor there. But that's my background, so to
Exactly.
speak.
No, absolutely. I always like to ask a little bit about the background of the people that I'm talking to, because I think it's like quite an interesting thing to hear a little bit about you guys and where you guys have come from, and what other work you've worked on, because people like to look into that. People like to see firsthand like the sort of work you've done. So moving away from that, we'll move more into Dead Matter itself now, and so as we've learned already, your main role within the team is currently based around the first-person animations in the game. and a whole lot of these have been shown in the vlogs so far. But could you, just for the viewers, could you give me some examples of, like, we've mentioned weapons already. What else have you been working on animation wise?
Oh, there's actually a lot that goes into, like, you think, when I do that kind of thing, it's just weapons, it's just like that kind of side of it. But there's a lot of stuff, especially when you want to do survival games with sort of, I don't know if you want to call it light parkour elements.
Mm-hmm.
So things like vaulting over. I know PUBG took forever to add this. Vaulting over like waist-high obstacles or climbing onto things. That stuff also needs to get done.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff for the toolbar is another great example. The stuff that has to get done.
Sure. Yeah.
Besides weapons.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think I've been watching Gunslinger working on the vaulting recently, and in terms of like the actual, the core behind the vaulting, that seems to be coming on really well. So it'll be interesting to see that, because I think that's such a... There's nothing that annoys me more, man, than like walking up to a fence in a game that's like no more than knee high, and your character just being like, no, I can't get over this. It's one of my pet peeves.
A funny kind of tidbit about that is actually when we were making How to Die, I had that same gripe about, like, we had fences in that game that you can't. They used to not be able to jump over, and I actually I had a whole conversation with our coder about adding like a light vaulting system, and what we ended up doing, because it's just a lot of work, and we kind of just didn't have the time. What we ended up doing, I actually argued him into just a straight increase in the jump height, so that was kind of funny.
I mean, it's one way to get around it, right? Like, at the end of the day, that's the second best option.
Yeah, if I'm trying to get somewhere, just like, I'm with you in the same boat. The most frustrating thing is like getting stuck on a fence or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I definitely want that to not be an issue.
Yeah, I think so far from what I've seen in terms of the animations and the vaulting and stuff like that, and just in general, the team seem to be very aware of all of these things. And it doesn't seem to be so much a matter of time with the Dead Matter team, as I'm sure you know. It's very it's done when it's done, which I really like. Personally, I love that approach. I can wait for a game for as long as needed, so long as it's a good game. It's fine. But with regards to kind of the animations themselves, what would you say has been the most challenging out of all of them that you've worked on?
Honestly, I'd probably have to answer again the vaulting. Maybe it's just because those are the most recent ones I've done that stick out in my head, but just the setup for it is more complicated than you might think.
Okay.
Because imagine you're animating someone climbing up a waist high fence, right? You can't exactly just animate them climbing up something, because it's not the way the engine kind of processes it. You can't when you animate it, you can't move the actual character. You know what I mean? The character has to be moved through code. So I can't animate him actually moving. You see there's kind of a disconnect between what you think you should do versus what I can do. So what I essentially have to do is trick the player into like moving the hands to make it look like you're climbing, right? And then having Gun basically do all the back end work and move your character in time to make it look like he's climbing things. It's kind of I don't know how complicated it is when I explain it like that, but it's sort of a thing that sort of I had to wrap my head around when I was trying to figure out exactly how I was going to do that. Which is not something I foresaw when I decided, I'm just gonna make a vaulting, and I was like, wait a second, this is actually more complicated than I thought.
Okay, so you're slightly limited by kind of the engine's capabilities, but it seems like you've managed to find a workaround. It's
just more time consuming, but it's worth it if it comes out all right, and it has so far.
Sure, that's awesome. And as of yet, I don't think we've seen animations for vaulting, so it should be interesting to see what that turns out to be. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't
Yeah,
think
no,
we've seen anything like that so far. So
not for waist high vaulting. I think we're still working on that. We're still getting the bugs worked out of that one. But the climbing, yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Just having to move them in my head, and then having gun doing it in engine to make it like, and making those match up is kind of like, it's pretty difficult. Another thing that
Sure.
might be sort of difficult in the future, might actually be I believe I was going to do some assassination kind of things for melee.
Oh, that'd be
I believe
awesome.
that was an idea that I got sort of from the community a while back, and that was something I sort of wanted to look into. But
Sure.
another thing that's just sort of like sounds easy in when you talk about it, but like in practice, you know, you have to have two characters in your scene, and like doing that is a bunch of technical stuff where you have to make sure that stuff, you know, exports properly, and you know the engine can read it and read what character is supposed to be doing what,
Sure.
and it doesn't get mixed up, and like all of that is just kind of like you have to work all that stuff out before you can even get to the animation part.
So
and then make it in.
So
go ahead.
we're possibly looking at kind of like close quarters first person animations for
At least the zombies.
yeah, that's what it was.
That's what
I was gonna say, like executing a zombie, if you like, during melee combat. So if we get the jump on them and they don't see us coming, we're able to quickly dispatch of one or two before they aggro, which would, I think that would add something to it. I really do, because it again offers you choices, right? It offers you choices on how you want to deal with the situation. If there's enough of you, then can you pick a zombie each, sneak in, take one out, and then, you know, your job is much easier from there if you can take them out quickly with like a melee weapon. So I like that idea.
I hate to draw this comparison, but the one thing that it makes me think of, like the sort of thing I sort of took inspiration from when I thought about it, was I don't know if you played the old Walking Dead game, the one where you play as Daryl, like before the outbreak.
You know, I didn't, because I heard pretty bad reviews on that, so I didn't pick it up.
Yeah. I definitely understand that. But they have a system in there where you can sneak up on them. And he kind of stabs them in the back of the head with like a knife or something like that, and that's sort of what I was thinking.
Sure, yeah, that sounds like a really cool system. So hopefully something that you manage to get worked out if you think it's going to be a challenging thing to implement. But I think either way, at the end of the day, like even if we just take them out with one melee hit, you know, it's still there. It's just that immersion factor, isn't it? And I think that's quite heavily what you'll be putting into the game is the immersion.
Basically, it's a lot of the making you feel immersed in the world, a lot of making the world feel grounded, making you feel like you're a part of it, that you're actually doing things, and you're not controlling a pair of hands that are doing things. It's sort of like the animator's job to kind of fix that disconnect, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of on that topic, I'm aware that there's going to be a whole host of items that we'll be able to use in game, from the things on our tool belt to things we can find in the world, and that's just the survival genre. Really, there's going to be a lot of items that we can use to our advantage. Can we expect animations for things like consumables, such as like food, water, medical items?
Here I want to draw from another game, but I'll get to it.
Sure.
In terms of consumables in general, food, water, that kind of thing, not at the top of the priority list, but like food and water specifically, like soda, drinks, that kind of thing. Just because it's more of like an immersion thing. It's more of like a, you know, if you play DayZ and stuff like that, and you eat like a can of beans or whatever, you eat the beans or whatever.
Sure.
The big focus for me is medical items. I did do one on, I think it was a morphine pen or something like that fixes broken legs, I believe.
Yep.
Because I saw how big of, if you played Escape from Tarkov before, I've seen how much of an effect that medical item animations can have on the gameplay. It's profound, really, the effect that it has on the game.
Yeah, I think asking if I've played Tarkov, you have no idea. It's pretty much my main game right now. Yeah. So
Tarkov's been playing me, so like I had to give it a bit of a break. But
no, I
remember that period before, you know, we had medical animations in, you could shoot. You'd shoot people in the middle while they could shoot back while hitting, like while taking painkillers.
Yes,
You know, and all that kind of thing, or like shoot back while healing. And that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of, it's kind of rough, but I
Yeah.
feel like that's a big part of the gameplay, and I feel like it's very crucial to player interactions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely something I want to get in first before I tackle the rest of consumables.
Absolutely.
I believe it's bandages, pills, especially stuff to manage illnesses, bleeding, that kind of thing. You can ask Johnny about it, the whole SETA system he's got set up, but that is my main focus. But eventually, I would like to animate, all the food and the items and that kind of thing.
It's interesting you mentioned Escape from Tarkov, actually, because I don't know kind of when the last time you played it was, but fairly recently. I mean, we're talking like maybe 2 or 3 months ago. They did actually add like a whole host of consumable animations.
Right. Yes, I've seen. I have indeed seen those, and I feel kind of bad because I know the guy that did them.
Oh,
I feel kind of bad for him, but he did a really good job, and that's sort of the thing I want to kind of go for.
Yeah.
Just that level of quality, where they covered everything, and they covered everything like really well. Like zippers move, cans like peel off realistically, like a spoon. They did a really funny thing with like the can of beans, where it's like a texture, and then he scoops actual beans out. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I did see that, but I think overall, like those animations are really well done.
Really good, yeah.
I think
that's sort of what I want to do.
I know there's a lot of people in my community that play Escape from Tarkov regularly, and I think my favorite one out of all of them had to be the tin of sprats, the little fish. They would just you'd pull one from it, and it like dangled in his hand a little bit, and then he just like kind of guided it over his mouth and dropped it. But then magically that same sprat would reappear in the can. It was great. But the next time you picked it out.
Look, there's a lot of dirty stuff that goes on, either behind the texture or behind the camera that you don't see. Right?
Yeah, I can imagine.
A lot of dirty tricks.
I can imagine. I mean, to be fair, like I say, they're very good. They're very good animations. I think, like in general, Tarkov is quite a good game to reference and to, I guess, aim for in terms of animations. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that are watching this that are very, very pleased to hear that. So moving away from that, I spoke with A Biscuits in a previous interview, not my last one, but the one before that. And I know he predominantly works with vehicles. Now, something we spoke about in that interview was like he would like to add a lot more to vehicles than in some survival games. So the ability to not turn on the ignition of the car, but turn it on to the point where the electrics come on, for example, and messing with the radio. He even talked about the possibility of putting the keys in the ignition as an animation, but of course then he said that that's your domain. So I kind of just wanted to get with you on that and see whether that was something that you would look at doing in the future. Like, are you interested in like maybe adding some vehicle animations for things like repairs, things like, in the driver's seat? Like, what are you thinking with regards to that?
In terms of the vehicle interaction, that's actually what I've been working on the last few days, is vehicle stuff. So,
cool.
I've been looking at the games I've been mostly looking at for reference have been Far Cry 4.
I'm so glad you said that.
Actually, Far Cry 2. I went back.
I'm so glad you said that.
2. Just because it's the only game I can actually think of that like has like first person like vehicle repairing. To the extent that they did it, but they had it to some extent.
Absolutely. I mean,
so that's what sort of what. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, to me, that's such a big deal that we've had to go for like Far Cry 2. Because when you think about it, which survival games have done that? Like, none, really.
Game's criminally underrated. And
it was just their animations were so good. Like, from anything from pulling bullets out of your arm to striking up your car. Like, I love that. I love that you've gone to that. So definitely very positive, I would say.
So I mean, as far as he's told me, he's willing to implement a lot of that, a lot of that detail stuff with the the turning on the ignition and that kind of thing. It's more just up to me, just like getting through everything. but I'd definitely be willing to, once I get through basically the basic stuff like turning the wheel and that kind of stuff. Because right now we have placeholder animations in.
Sure.
I'm trying to completely replace that stuff first, and then we'll get into, I want to be able to take the keys in and out. I want to be able to, turn on the radio. I don't know if I'll go into like, I've thought about possibly doing some stuff for turning on like headlights and that kind of thing. Might just, that's another one of those things that's depends how nice the engine decides to play with the animation system. So
I'm sure.
but it's not like something that's like hugely. One thing you'll find out about, like, I feel like it's programmers and animators, is that they'll do a lot of things that only they will notice. Like only me and like maybe 10 people would notice that. Oh, he takes his hand off to turn on the headlights. No one else would care. But like it's just things like that make the job kind of like it adds that little bit of extra fun for me.
Absolutely,
those kind of things.
I mean,
but
if it's
detail is definitely something I'm definitely great.
Sure,
great at, doing.
And I think without even noticing, those people that, like you say, those people that don't notice, it still adds to that immersion, right? It's all those little things coming together to make it seem as real as possible. And I think for all the people watching these sorts of videos as well, like they're probably interested in that, because it's like, I know for me, like when I take these interviews, I want to know everything. I want to know everything there is to know. I want to see like what's happening, what's planned, what's coming, all those fine little details. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that will be on the lookout for things like that. So definitely very exciting. I have these scenarios in my head, where I'm like sat outside a gas station in my car, like using the lights to light up the area, and you guy like turns the ignition, leaves the keys in, pushes open the door, steps out of the door and shuts it behind him. Like all of that sort of thing to me is like so cool, And again, you're going back to Far Cry, right? Like all of that is so well done. Okay. It's just so well done.
I thought of scenarios like where, like maybe you're being, since cars will be a relatively common thing, it won't be like impossible to find cars, right? If you're say you're running away from somebody, right? Someone's chasing you in a car, and like chasing, it's a car chase, whatever. And I don't know if you played. I know Watch Dogs does this for sure, where you can pull into like an alley or something like that and turn your lights off, turn the ignition off, right?
Oh.
And just have the electricity running. Okay. So like you can let people just pass you by, right? Especially if it's at nighttime. And you can get people to slip. Like that's something like I really like, a gameplay effect of like being able to do that kind of thing.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be really cool to see in game, definitely. So
also, it'll probably tie into Johnny putting in like dead batteries and all that kind of thing.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. There's definitely a lot that comes into play with these sorts of things, and the more that I speak to you guys, the more that I learn that all of that is becoming entwined together, and everything relies on something else, and that's really cool because it all meshes together. And I think like again when it comes to immersion, it's making sure that it all joins up, and it's like a continuous flow, I guess, of like different things coming together to make that full experience. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Basically, my goal is just to do enough that it immerses you in the world, but not so much that it bogs down the game. That's really where I want to like give you options, but not give you a hurdle to doing things that should be easy.
Sure.
If you can sort of see what I mean with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
A good example is like getting in and out of cars. I'm not particularly sure whether or not I want to animate getting out of cars, aside from the work that's required for like all the different vehicles or whatever. Just if you need to quickly get out of somewhere, right? That time that it takes you to get in and out of a car might get you killed.
True.
Do we want to have that as part of the gameplay? Does that sort of dipping pretty heavy into the simulation kind of aspect, and we're sort of trying to balance being simulation versus being fun gameplay kind of thing.
That's very true.
That's just something we'll sort of have to maybe prototype and play test and just see what material effect it kind of has on the gameplay. So
yeah, absolutely, I can see that. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really important point, as well as like balancing that with the PvP elements that can come into play. We spoke about earlier like how the weapons came up and how it's like the most obvious thing that people think about when animations come up.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go kind of like into a little bit more detail with regards to weapons. So obviously we know that the basics there are like, you know, reloading, pulling back the bolts on certain bolt action weapons and things like that are all kind of necessity. But what else are we going to see? So, for example, you know, let's use Tarkov again, since you know that game and you seem very well versed with it. Chambering rounds individually, you know, like you can take the bullet out of the chamber and there's a different animation for every single gun for removing that round from the chamber. Stuff like that, you know, repairing weapons, changing integral parts. What are you thinking with regards to animations in that respect? Like, how in depth are you going to want to go?
That is another one of those things where it's like we kind of have to test how how it affects the gameplay, really how deep we want to go into the simulation kind of aspect of it, because that's kind of Tarkov's goal, is to make it as realistic as possible. You know, we're not necessarily going for that. There are aspects that I like from Tarkov that I want to take from Tarkov. For instance, I don't know if this is a feature from Tarkov or Battlefield, but like the ability to once you, like, say you're firing a bolt action rifle, right? Like the R700, for instance, whatever.
Yeah.
You shoot, right? And you can hold down on the mouse button to see if you hit your target or see what happens. And then when you let go of it, then you rack the bolt, right? I find that like that's an invaluable tool that not a lot of people think about until like they don't have it, you know?
I would agree.
You shoot and then charge the bolt and suddenly you have no idea, you know, if you hit the dude or not, or what the fuck he did, or you have no idea.
Yeah, I definitely think that would be a really cool thing to see.
Excuse my language, I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about that. It's okay. We're not trying to like we're not PG. It's fine.
No, YouTube algorithm and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I think with regards to like the weapons and stuff like that, like waiting, like delaying the pullback on the bolt is like a really, really good thing for PvP and sometimes PvE aspects as well. Like if you're just, you know, like long range,
especially for long shots. Yeah.
And I love that
for chambering. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that I love that you mentioned the R700 as, by the way, bonus points for that one. I don't know if you knew or not, but for those that don't know, that's the backer weapon that we're putting in the game, is the R700.
Look at that, nice 308.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited.
Like it.
I'm so excited. It's without a doubt my favorite weapon from Tarkov. So it just kind of it bled over, and I was like, yeah, I need to have this. I need to have this in depth matter. So
fair enough. I'll have to see what I can do in terms of, you know. I forgot to mention, I also do handle a lot of the sound design for the weapons. So I have to,
you do?
I have to dig into my archives to see if I can get something nice for that. Shark handles a lot of the back end, like the reverb and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It was very much the reason why I liked it so much from Tarkov was very much the sound design. I think it looks cool when you're like holding it. But the sound design, I don't know if you've tried firing the M700 in Tarkov without a suppressor.
Unfortunately, I'm not that good.
The whole map hears you. The whole map hears you, but it's glorious.
Oh, you're ringing the dinner bell.
Exactly. But it's glorious, and with a suppressor, it's the complete opposite. It's like one of the quietest guns in the game by far. It's a versatile weapon, and I'm really excited to kind of bring that to the game and maybe add like that versatility, especially when it comes to like the modding capabilities that we could have. So it's interesting to learn that you're working on like some of the sound design as well. So that'll be cool to see.
In terms of the chambering rounds individually, I this is one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I'll have to try on a couple weapons just see how it goes. I'm thinking if we go sort of the way with it, but not all the way. Maybe we'll have it for like bolt actions and stuff like that, but not for like semi-auto rifles. Just because like usually more than likely if you have a gun, like you're not gonna get a gun and no magazine like you do in Tarkov. Like most of the time, if you get a gun, you're gonna have at least one magazine.
Sure.
You just load it that way.
Okay.
There's no reason to do this single load unless you're using a bolt action.
Yeah, I
In
think.
which case, we already have that stuff. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the bolt actions are kind of like one of the only ones that we'll be looking at with that in mind. So yeah, that's good to hear. Is there anything that isn't animated in Dead Matter right now which you're really excited to work with in the future? Like, tell us like what you're looking forward to adding.
Right now, it's a lot of the flamethrower. Flamethrower, I'm really looking forward to.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I've been talking about Johnny about how the best way to do it. But the flamethrower, if you've seen the flamethrower in, I'm actually gonna bring up Far Cry again here, but Far Cry.
Yep.
Their flamethrower, I like their flamethrower a lot. Except we might not have the reloading part just because of the way it's designed, or we might have it remodeled. I don't.
Okay.
But in terms of just having that's probably, and then just having just the power, and getting across the fact that you're it's you're shooting fire from a especially against a bunch of zombies, and we have like burning and stuff like that, and like zombies catch on fire and all that. So it'll be a spectacle when you get a handle on one of those.
I can imagine
That'll be really nice, and I really want to get to that. It's sort of far down on the list because I have backer weapons and like the 416, a lot of the pistols, the R700 that you mentioned that I have to get to first, but eventually we'll get there. We have a revolver I'd really like to get to as well. I don't know if you've seen that one. We had another one of our contractors, Alex, model I believe it's a raging bull.
Oh yeah.
Raging bull revolver. 357.
That'll be exciting. A nice bit of kick behind one of those.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure that'll make a hole in something. Ugh.
And if once we get a solid bow, I'm still working out the specifics for that. But those are probably my top three.
Oh,
okay. The bow, the flamethrower, and the revolver.
Okay, so we're looking at more like the unique weapons coming into it. It's interesting that you mentioned a bow as well. That'd be cool, and it'd be maybe nice to see that implemented in terms of hunting as well, like without making sound.
Yeah, that's definitely the way I was kind of. This is something that kind of was really where I got the idea was sort of from actually from Fallout 4, because it was something that was really wanted in the Fallout community for a long time, and like nobody really had the knowledge or the wherewithal to all the requisite skills to put together the mod as a whole, like to put the whole thing together, right?
Sure.
And I had to do a lot of testing to like make sure, like to figure out how exactly within their system I could get a bow to work. And that taught me a lot in terms of like how I want to set things up and how I want to set the animations up to work and that kind of thing. So that provided a lot of experience and made me kind of want to bring it to this game.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm looking forward to that now, because I definitely when I go out into Dead Matter, my kind of my idea in my head is to find somewhere out in the sticks a little bit, and I'm definitely planning on moving more towards surviving off of animals and potentially like any small crops we could grow as soon as possible, because I love that aspect of it. I love that going into that full survival nature, and kind of detaching yourself from the big cities and making it a big deal when you go and venture into a big city like that. So that's really cool to hear about the bow, and obviously flamethrower. Who doesn't like those? So
it was just really easy for me to flesh that kind of thing out, just because of when I did my Fallout 4 playthroughs, when I was testing the bow and stuff like that. Like that was sort of how I designed my sans of the zombies, but living off the land, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, set up a camp. Hunt they have mutated deer.
Sure. Yeah.
You hunting the deer, and having different arrow types. I think I ended up actually going so far as modeling like a whole bow and different arrowheads and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Okay.
So I went kind of crazy with it, but just that being able to recover arrows after you shoot them, which is kind of important, and for some reason doesn't seem to exist in some games, but yeah, being able to do that kind of thing, having chance for arrows to break is an idea I got from a friend of mine.
Sure. Yeah, that
Just
would
that
be
kind of
really
thing. Just sort of
nice.
want to really flesh out that system and just make sure that that's a play style that you can have, that you
Yeah,
can use. So like not if you don't want to, because we'll have skill trees and all. Our version of skill trees, whatever, however Johnny decides to go with that. If you don't decide to, you know, spec into firearms specifically, you still have options outside of melee. You know
I
what I mean?
like that. Yeah, that's really cool. I gotta ask, the inner Walking Dead fan inside me has gotta ask. Crossbow,
No
potentially.
spoilers. Okay.
Okay, okay, no spoilers. All right, that's fair. That's fair. Um, so
I was thinking, yeah, maybe crossbow, maybe
maybe.
crossbow. If we can find a good model, or have Stefan make one, definitely can see a crossbow.
Okay,
Crossbows actually be that much easier than a bow, but a lot less work. But definitely possible.
okay, okay, cool. I'll definitely hold you to that. So I'll be on the lookout. So, how important do you feel that the balancing of weapons is going to be in Dead Matter? Because I'm aware that you work on stuff as well with regards to like damage and fire rate and just weapon statistics in general. How important do you think that's going to be to the game?
I think most of our balancing, I believe, now is based on caliber. We have to do a big balance pass, of course, before we put it into the closed alpha, just to make sure everything's like totally right.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it's based on, especially with our projectile system, our simulated projectile system, where bullets, penetrate objects and bounce off of surfaces and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like 9mm is not gonna do the same kind of damage that 7.62 is gonna do. You get it. You play Tarkov.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely.
I do think me and Johnny have both kind of stressed the importance of still having certain weapons have a place. I know in Tarkov specifically, like outside of some pistols, the shrimp that in the there's an automatic 9x18
Glock
pistol that I'm
18,
not
are you
remembering
thinking?
right.
Glock 8. Oh, the
It's not.
APS?
Yes, the APS.
Yeah.
Outside of those two, it's not really a use to have a pistol as sort of just because also because of financials and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's Tarkov. But it was really important for us to have pistols be effective weapons. So we still want to have 9mm, have use. We don't want it to just get like stuffed out by armor and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be interesting.
It's going to be a lot of that because it's just taking into account like time to kill and how it interacts with the health system that we have and that kind of thing. I do think it's just something that's going to require a lot of testing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes for any game that has like more than a handful of weapons, right? And especially when you bring armor into play and medical systems, like that just needs testing. But we have the, I guess not consolation, but the knowledge that even with pistols, like we were saying right there, we're gonna have uses for them, even if we don't need them for necessarily killing players. We're always going to prefer to kill a zombie with a 9mm if we can, over using, a rare 5.56 round or a 7.62 bullet, right? We're always going to prefer doing that to save ammo. So
yeah, especially in 9mm is going to be a lot more common than trying to find 308. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean that's at least something to kind of bear in mind. But it's cool to hear that you guys are, putting a bit of an emphasis on making sure that that's all tested and you're fully aware that it might need some changes a little bit later down the line, because I feel like so many games, and I think Tarkov is one of these actually, where a lot of people can criticize that perhaps they aren't balanced as good as they could be. I mean, you look at the Mosin in Tarkov right now, the
7N1.
It's unreal. You can buy that thing for cheap, and it'll drop somebody in one shot unless they're wearing, level 4 armor, or level 5 armor, which is acquired much later in the game.
Level 5.
Yeah, you've got to look at wearing a Gen 4 to stop a Mosin round if it's 7N1 like armor piercing.
Do they buff it? That's crazy.
You'll see a lot of people moaning about two particular variants, which is the Mosins and the Vepr Hunters right now, which is a 308.
Vepr Hunter, I definitely understand. Oh yeah.
Both of those are incredibly cheap weapons and can penetrate like higher level armors. So they're kind of like a go-to for the people that can't afford like better stuff right now, which isn't their fault. This is the thing. It's not really their fault. If they can't afford a better weapon, that is the go-to. It's most effective against killing high geared players. So I think it kind of,
I mean, yeah, it's just price to performance. I mean, it just makes financial sense.
exactly. So really at that point you've got to look towards development, and I think that's something that I can see a lot of people being worried about. So it's, you know, it's good that you guys are fully aware that weapons are going to need testing and that you're prepared to make those changes. So
I mean, we're going to be tweaking forever. I mean, Tarkov is still they're still tweaking their bullet values and penetration values and all that stuff. So it's just when you have so many systems working together, it just one kind of change to one weapon can create a new meta, and it's kind of crazy how that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, I think balancing in all aspects of gaming, like especially when you're looking at competitive esports, for example, it's not easy, right? Like you can balance one thing and it just completely ruins something else and makes something else really strong because you might have nerfed the obvious counter to that or something along those lines, you know, and then the like you say, the meta changes. So yeah, definitely not a simple thing, but hopefully something that you guys are gonna be able to tweak over time, and hopefully we won't see any, you know, any ridiculously
really
overpowered examples.
We do have a saving grace with the zombies, and you know, every against zombies, but you know,
yeah,
it's just gonna have to work itself out.
Sure. So just out of my own personal curiosity, we've already kind of looked at what you were excited about animating, being the bow and the flamethrowers and stuff. Out of the weapons that we can expect to see in the game so far, what would be your favorite? This is just kind of my personal curiosity more than anything.
We're doing civilian and military, or do you not care?
Oh, I don't care. If you want, you can give me one for each.
I suppose I'm gonna have to pick the revolver again for civilian, if we can count that as civilian. Like I feel like 357s are fairly common. Military, it's a tie. Probably it's a tie between the we have two. If you played in Insurgency Sandstorm.
Yep, I have.
They have the G3 variant, so they might not have. Might have just have the G3A3, but
okay.
We have a G3A1 or G3G1, I believe it's called. I don't know. It's weird with the naming. And the G3A3. So I have both of those. I still need to work on. It's between that and the probably the P220.
Yep.
That we already have. That I'm going to do some touch-ups on. We might have a 226. I was trying to convince Johnny to maybe get one of those because I know it's a specialty of the Canadian military.
Oh, okay.
Or the Canadian police force that they like their SIGs. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
I just having shot one at the range. It's just a personal.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean that's understandable, and like we were saying earlier, like a reliable sidearm is never something that you'll be. I guess it's always something that you're gonna want in the zombie apocalypse, right? This is something to quickly dispatch with a zombie, and I think the SIG weapons are, at least to me, are known for that kind of like versatility in close quarters. So it could be good to see those, definitely. So I think those are definitely good choices.
I think someone wanted an SVD. Someone got like some crazy, like upper at 50 cal or something. I don't know if I don't know if that's a true story. That might be fake. But
50 calibers, yeah, 50 calibers and stuff like that are always really difficult with games like this because you could be looking at something. You could
really
be looking
strong
at
and kind of
exactly. You could be looking at something potentially game breaking with terms of balancing, but at the same time, I feel like there are ways to potentially balance something like that. You know, for example, you could look at the 50 calibers having to be mounted on an object, or ammo
Right.
being
That's a good idea.
incredibly rare, or
That was the first one I thought of right there.
yeah, or even just, you know, it not coming with a scope to start with, and then not having an iron sight built in, so you need to find a scope to attach to it to use it properly. I feel like
Or just having them overheat very quickly, or making them prone to jam.
Mhm.
Oh, I forgot to mention we definitely have a jamming system.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. And is that going to relate to the repairing, like the maintenance kind of your weapons directly?
Indeed, it will. Yeah. So they're I believe that's tied into Johnny's skill system. I believe with a certain skill you can repair things with duct tape. But outside of that, you're gonna have to like maintain your weapons and kind of thing,
Okay.
or they'll jam. And there's a certain percentage chance there's a percentage chance that goes up as the weapon falls into disrepair of the gun jamming.
Gotcha. That sounds really cool.
Once it jams, you have to clear your chamber and all that kind of thing.
So that's where the animations come into play there.
Oh yeah. So I believe I have it prototyped with, I believe, the AK, and I just have to get around to doing it for the rest of the weapons. But that's definitely something that we have in the works.
Sounds like a cool idea.
In addition to that.
I don't know. I don't know if I speak for everybody. I'm sure there are some people that would prefer a simpler system there, but for me personally, I like having all these little things to keep an eye on.
We definitely don't want it to be oppressive. I definitely understand the concern of like, oh, my gun jams all the time and I die, but like, we wanted to make it feel like it's part of the game, but it doesn't overwhelm the game. Like it's not going to be like super hard to maintain your weapons. You're not going to feel like you have to constantly like do upkeep, or you might die or something like that, just something stupid. Like it's a balancing act. We just want to have it there, so like there's certain things you do have to take care of, especially if you're going to be firing something full auto, where you do have to take care of it. Will malfunction on you.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially high capacity magazines, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing something like that. That'll be really interesting.
But yeah, rest assured, it's not going to be super.
Okay. Well, that's cool. That's good to hear, because, like I say, I'm sure some people that are more like interested in the PvP aspect might be a bit upset if your gun was jamming every 20 seconds. But at the same time, by the sounds of it, it won't be too difficult to maintain those weapons. So really, if it gets to that stage,
it's your fault.
Exactly. You've only got yourself to blame for that. So something to keep an eye on. In terms of my questions, I'm coming to the end of what I had for you. But in the last couple of interviews, I've kind of opened the floor for community feedback. So I kind of want to give you a chance, and you might not have anything to say here, but I do want to give you a chance to kind of ask the community for some feedback on stuff you're working on. So are there any areas at the moment where you're perhaps not sure how you want to handle it, or something that you'd be looking for opinions on from the community?
A big one would probably be, I know I did this a while ago, but it was a while before I got a lot of experience with this kind of thing.
Sure.
A big thing I really want to focus on, especially for the game, is the melee. Melee is kind of going to be a big thing for me, because I really want to flesh out that system and make sure it feels great. A big thing I'm referencing for that is kind of Far Cry 5, I want to say.
Right.
So if you've ever hit somebody with a shovel in Far,
of course. Of course.
That's sort of the kind of impact I want to kind of have. That, and if you play Dying Light, hitting zombies with a bat in that game, I really want to kind of have that. So it's just kind of bringing together a bunch of aspects from different games to sort of make something that's fun, impactful, but doesn't kind of clutter the system, where we have people like doing parries and that kind of thing on the street with baseball bats. I don't really want that.
Sure.
But maybe like a light dodge, maybe being able to push a zombie with the like two hands, push a zombie away from you is something I want to do.
Sure.
Heavy light swings. Johnny has said he wants to do kind of directional swings. We just have to see how all that shakes out. But
okay.
If the community has any ideas for that, I'm totally, and I system as robust as possible.
Okay.
To be totally honest, I just wanted to make something that makes you want to use a melee weapon. That is like, so you want to take down a zombie with melee weapons because they feel good to you.
Cool. Okay,
So
so
anything that people have come across in games, they're like, yeah, that felt sort of want to replicate over in Dead Matter. Like, feel free to suggest it in the comments and something like that, and we'll look.
Awesome.
Sort of source things for that. That's really the big one.
Okay, cool. So you've just made my job a lot simpler because you basically just told everybody what I was going to tell them anyway. So that's awesome. If you could, to kind of sum that up, if there's anybody that has played like other games in the past that have had like certain melee systems in place or any just cool features when it comes to melee systems, do feel free to leave that in the comments. Do just let them know. I'll ask Haxorus here just to keep an eye on the comments, and I'll be doing the same. So if anything comes up that's really interesting, I'll be relaying that to Haxorus myself. If there's any questions you guys have about that, feel free to put them in there as well. And aside from that, the forums and the Discord, both of which will be linked in the comments, are really, really good for these questions. There are multiple places you can ask these questions, and the team are really good at getting back to them. So consider that as well. Awesome. That brings me to the end of the questions I had. So, Haxorus, thank you very much for sitting in this with me and answering all my questions. And it was really good to kind of learn your influences on the game, what you've played, where you've drawn your ideas from. So, thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to seeing your work in the game soon.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. See you soon.